One of the other main issues that had united and defined and shaped the Trump movement over the last 4 years was a very strong, close to unified and unanimous opposition among MAGA populists to the Biden administration's policy of arming and financing Ukraine in its war against Russia. I had many MAGA influencers and pundits. I had members of Congress who are MAGA on my show. And one after the next, they all vehemently denounced U.S. funding and arming of the war in Ukraine, arguing it was futile. It's not our war. It's not our business. We have to use our resources to take care of our own people at home. That's what America First was. And President Trump was highly critical of that Biden policy, on top of which he repeatedly promised he would get a deal done. Not, I'm going to try and get a deal done. He said, I'll solve it in 24 hours, even if that was a little hyperbolic, as he now claims. He's had 4 months, 5 months. He's not even close to getting it done. And a lot of people were saying, when he kept saying, I'm going to get it done in 24 hours, they kept saying, Putin's not going to just sign whatever deal you tell him to. He's winning the war. They've spent enormous amounts of money, lost tens of thousands, if not more, Russian lives in pursuit of a war that they believe is in their existential interest to win. They're going to just give up because you tell them to. And he was like, no, they will. Now, just at the beginning of this month, we were told that the Trump administration was going to pause sending munitions and other missiles to Ukraine because the U.S. doesn't have them to give. We're low in our own stockpiles. In part because we've sent so much to Ukraine, we've sent so much to Israel. We use them to protect Israel from ballistic missiles sent by Iran. We've used them to bomb Yemen for whatever reason for a full month. We just don't have it to give, we were told. And as a result, Politico, July 1st, this is last week, U.S. pauses some munition shipments to Ukraine, including air defense missiles. Senior White House official says, quote, the Pentagon has halted shipments of some air defense missiles and other precision munitions to Ukraine due to worries the U.S. weapons stockpiles have fallen too low. The decision was driven by the Pentagon's policy chief, Elbridge Colby, and was made after a review of Pentagon munitions stockpiles, leading to concerns that the total number of artillery rounds, air defense missiles, and precision missile munitions was shrinking. According to 3 people familiar with the issue, White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly said in a statement the decision was, quote, made to put America's interests first, following a DoD review of our nation's military support and assistance to other countries across the globe. The strength of the United States Armed Forces remains unquestioned. Just ask Iran. Just ask Iran if you have any doubts. They do, she went on, they do want to have the anti-missile missiles, as they call them, and we're going to see if we can make some available, Trump said at a news conference at the end of the NATO summit in The Hague on Wednesday. Quote, they are very hard to get. So this is what we were told. And remember, we did reporting on this as well during, right after Trump negotiated the ceasefire between Iran and Israel, that basically Israel needed this war to end. Israel's own air defense system was going down to zero. Iran's missiles were getting through at a much higher rate. They were not even sending that many missiles, and yet there was all kinds of contact and impact and destruction. Trump himself said Israel was getting pounded, especially in the last several days. And the U.S. didn't have any to give them. They didn't have any to replenish. The U.S. was running out of its own missiles to protect Israel, and so Israel needed an end to this war. I know we all believe that it was a great triumph. The United States and Iran and Israel kicked Iran's ass. We pounded them. We won. You know, that's always war propaganda. I remember growing up, I was told the U.S. never lost a war. Never lost a war in its history. And I was hearing this after the Vietnam War. So this stockpile depletion is very real. NBC News, July 4th, just 4 days ago. Pete Hegseth halted weapons for Ukraine despite a military analysis that the aid wouldn't jeopardize U.S. readiness. Quote, the Defense Department held up a shipment of U.S. weapons for Ukraine this week over what officials said were concerns about its low stockpiles. But an analysis by senior military officers found that the aid package would not jeopardize the American military's own ammunition supplies, according to 3 U.S. officials. The move to halt the weapons shipment blindsided the State Department, members of Congress, officials in Kiev, and European allies, according to multiple sources with knowledge of the matter. Suspending the shipment of military aid to Ukraine was a unilateral step by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. according to 3 congressional aides and a former U.S. official familiar with the matter. All anonymous sources just backbiting one another. Elbridge Colby said, we did a review of our stockpile. It's way too low to be able to risk sending more to Ukraine. We don't have it. Pete Hegseth made that same decision. The White House confirmed it. And then a bunch of anonymous cowards inside the Pentagon who obviously want the U.S. to continue its bipartisan Biden-Trump policy of arming Ukraine ran to NBC and was like, yeah, that's not true. We can send them all the missiles I want. It doesn't threaten our stockpile. Everyone's anonymous in this article. Quote, it was the 3rd time Hegseth on his own has stopped shipments of aid to Ukraine, the sources said. In the 2 previous cases in February and May, his actions were reversed days later. Here is Trump at the White House yesterday, again with Netanyahu, as always, 3rd time, 5 months that Netanyahu has visited the U.S. No other world leader has visited twice. This is Netanyahu's 3rd trip. And here is what Trump said when asked about Ukraine.
Are you planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Yeah, defensive weapons primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard. So many people are dying in that mess.
Now, so ironically, revealing what Fox News is, let's go back to that, please. The graphic, the on-screen graphic, the whole time where Trump was speaking was Netanyahu nominates Trump for Nobel Peace Prize. And it just stays up the whole time. So you have one leader, an Israeli leader, who has completely destroyed civilian life in Gaza, killing tens of thousands of children and other innocent people by huge amounts with the goal of ethnically cleansing Gaza, as they're now being explicit. And you have another president, the one of the United States, who, like his predecessor, Joe Biden, has been paying for what the overwhelming consensus of human rights groups around the world say is a genocide. And Fox News has the audacity to say he's been nominated, Trump has, for a Nobel Peace Prize. There's no such thing as a nomination for a Nobel Peace Prize. I believe it was a National Review writer. I think it might have even been Jonah Goldberg, who used to put in his bio, nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize or something like that. Anyone can nominate anyone. It's completely meaningless. That's not a thing. It's not like being nominated for an Academy Award where the Academy picks the 5 top actors, but you don't win, so you're like, oh, I was nominated. That's not how this works. But Netanyahu knows he can flatter Trump and get whatever he wants. So he comes with the letter saying, Mr. President, I've nominated you for the Nobel Peace Prize. And Trump's like, oh, like it's so important. And then Fox News acts like it's some huge accomplishment. It's like state TV to an insane level. But also, the whole time that's on there, Trump is talking about arming Ukraine so they can continue this war. And yeah, defensive weapons is what he's saying, although not only defensive weapons, but that was the Biden administration policy as well. Here's the next part of this where Trump is again asked about Ukraine, and this is what he says.
Mr. President, you have sent more weapons to Ukraine, as you said last night. Last week, the Pentagon paused some shipments of weapons to Ukraine. Did you approve of that pause?
We want to put defensive weapons because Putin is not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. What did you tell me?
So Trump's basically saying, I didn't know anything about this pause. I didn't do it. I just want to pause for a second on the dark and sick irony that Donald Trump is accusing Putin of killing too many civilians while he's sitting across the table from his extremely good friend and close ally whom he loves, Benjamin Netanyahu, who has killed infinitely more innocent people in Gaza, with the U.S. paying for it, and the U.S. arming it, and the U.S. protecting it under 2 consecutive presidents, one a Democrat, one a Republican. And Putin isn't treating human life well. And that's why Putin is this bad person who means that Trump has to now continue the Biden policy that he said for so long he opposed of arming Ukraine? Did he just discover this? That people in Ukraine are getting killed as a result of this war? Is that like a new thing he just found out in the last few days that made him do a 180 and now want to send weapons and arm the Ukrainians? Here's more of Trump explaining this policy reversal.
That was a war that should have never happened, and a lot of people are dying, and it should end. And I don't know, we get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
Do you want to sanction him? Lindsey Graham has a sanctions bill on Russia. Do you want him to move ahead
I'm looking
with that?
at it, yeah. No, I'm looking. The Senate is passed a very, very tough sanctions. But yeah, I'm looking at it.
And you'd sign that?
It's an optional bill. It's totally at my option. They passed it totally at my option and to terminate totally at my option. And I'm looking at it very strongly.
I mean, again, this idea that, Putin spouts a lot of bullshit in Trump's words. He's very nice to me, but it's meaningless. He can't be trusted. This is what all the people who favored arming Ukraine all these years were telling Trump. Putin's a bad guy. He can't be trusted. He wants this war. He doesn't value human life. We have to protect the Ukrainians. All of MAGA was against this. And then Trump gets into office and he starts talking like Michael McFaul or Ann Applebaum or David Frum. You could give Trump a New York, an Atlantic article, an Atlantic column with him saying this stuff about Ukraine. He would fit right in. Here, in addition to Trump talking about sanctions, which might just be a stick he's holding up to get Putin back to the negotiating table, the New York Times last week said this, quote, lack of new U.S. sanctions allows restricted goods and funds into Russia. So the New York Times is complaining that there are no new U.S. sanctions on Russia, and that's somehow helping them. Now, just to give you a sense, Trump is acting like he alone sees what Putin really is. He just discovered that Putin's not trustworthy. This isn't to all what these neocons have been saying, all these people who are fanatical supporters of the war in Ukraine, who have been accusing Trump of being a Putin asset or Russian asset because he won't support the Ukrainians. Here's Michael McFaul, Obama's former ambassador to Russia. February 19, 2025, quote, when it comes to Putin, Trump is out of step with the American people. An overwhelming majority of voters, 81%, think the United States should not trust Vladimir Putin, while 9% think the United States should trust him. Garry Kasparov, the anti-Putin fanatic, who's a Russian chess player, said, quote, Trump said yesterday that he trusts Putin. Making that fallacy clear now is important for all future decisions by the Trump administration, whatever strange hold Putin has on him. Trump doesn't like to be laughed at as a sucker. Musk won't be blamed. Trump will. Elizabeth Warren, showing how bipartisan this is, March 3rd. First, Donald Trump blames Zelensky for Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Then he says he, quote, trusts Putin. Now he's frozen bipartisan military aid. It's clear that Donald Trump is putting his fragile ego before our national security, siding with Putin over U.S. allies in Europe. So Trump now sounds exactly like all of those people. Liz Warren, Michael McFaul, the whole gang. Not just continuing their policy of arming Ukraine, but also talking about the rationale in exactly the same manner. Here was Trump at just one of his countless campaign rallies where he talked about the war in Ukraine. This was September 24th, 2024, so barely a month before the election. And here is what he said. He was in Savannah, Georgia.
Biden and Kamala got us into this war in Ukraine, and now they can't get us out. They can't get us out. I watched him. We will win. We will. He's been saying that for 3 years. Every time Zelensky comes to the United States, he walks away with $100 billion. I think he's the greatest salesman on earth. But we're stuck.
Everybody booing. Ooh, boo, we don't want to give money to Zelensky. No more arms to Ukraine, not like Joe Biden wants to do. This is the MAGA faithful in Savannah, Georgia, and Trump is telling them that's how he thinks too.
In that war, unless I'm president, I'll get it done. I'll get it negotiated. I'll get out. We got to get out. Biden says, we will not leave until we win. What happens if they win? That's what they do, is they fight wars. As somebody told me the other day, they beat Hitler, they beat Napoleon. That's what they do, they fight. And it's not pleasant, but, we've given them close to $300 billion. And you know what Europe has given them? Which is approximately our size when you add up the countries together. Their economy, it's very close to our size. They've given them like a small fraction of that number, just a small, very small fraction.
It's not, that wasn't true. Europe hadn't given a very small fraction. They may have given about half. And I do think that's a valid complaint. The Europeans should have paid more. But the critique was, you're not going to beat the Russians. Russia's going to win eventually anyway. We're draining our own citizenry to fund this war in Ukraine with no end in sight. And Trump said, I'm going to get out. And the audience booed when he mentioned that Biden wants to keep funding them and arming them. And now that's Trump's policy. Just like bombing Yemen was something that Trump criticized Biden for doing during the campaign, and then he did it and escalated it. He continuously warned that Obama was going to bomb Iran because he doesn't know how to negotiate, can't get a deal done. Trump then decides he can't get a deal done, bombs Iran, exactly what he mocked Obama for doing. The Epstein files, obviously. There's a lot going around that they're going to do an amnesty for a lot of people who are in the country illegally but work for interests that Donald Trump considers important. And now here's Trump saying, yeah, we got to keep arming Ukraine because you can't trust Putin. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.